Dan Lanning's got his coordinators back in 2025, and I wonder how long he can do that for.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Surprises to watch. Going into spring ball, I've got one on each side of the ball. Nate Bittle is really good. So is Oregon baseball and softball, by the way. So, yeah, great episode coming. It's brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So, Dan Lanning got extended last week through 2030, $11 million a year. There are only a handful of coaches, most of whom have won national championship last time I had checked, that are making more money than Dan Lanning this year. But there was also an increased salary pool for assistant coaches, and contract extensions were given to Tosh Lupoi, the defensive coordinator, and Will Stein, the offensive coordinator. This will be the third straight year that Oregon has the same offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator going into 2025. And in today's world of college football, that's pretty darn rare. Over on Locked On College Football, I make this point regularly that I'm a big fan of teams, and I tend to look upon more favorably those that return either 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3 between your head coach, your quarterback, and your offensive coordinator, because it's not something that you see very often. For example, over in the ACC, Clemson is seen as the favorite, and one of the reasons I believe is because their head coach is still there, Dabo Swinney. Cade Klubnik is back to start for a third year at quarterback, and Garrett Riley, their offensive coordinator, Lincoln's brother, is still the OC. Same system, same calls, same everything. For a young growing quarterback like Cade Klubnik, who's incredibly talented going into his third year starting, also made me wonder, will Dante Moore start for 3 years at Oregon? I don't know. He could. He could. We'll see. That's a discussion for another day. But Will Stein and Tosh Lupoi, let's start with Stein on the offensive side of things. So he's just 35 years old. And I think right now in college football, there's certainly a youth movement. There's also kind of a player movement. You know, Eddie George got hired over at Bowling Green to be the head coach. Dion, of course, at Colorado. Deshaun Jackson is a head coach at the FCS ranks at Delaware State. Pac-10 legend Deshaun Jackson, RIP. Pac-10, not Deshaun Jackson, of course. But I look at what is happening across the sport, and Will Stein meets the criteria for young, up-and-coming, ascending coordinator that wants to be a head coach, and a guy who, you know, has already made the jump from one level of football to the next level of football. It's pretty reasonable to presume that he'd want to make the next one. Now, you know, as I talked about on Friday's show with Lanning, the only job that I'd look for Dan Lanning in terms of whether I'd be worried Lanning would go and leave Oregon would be Georgia. The good news is Kirby Smart is one of those coaches that is really, really good, has won a couple national championships. He's not going anywhere. So for Will Stein, he's a graduate of Louisville that just hired one of the best coaches last year, really in all of college football. He's an incredibly underrated quarterback whisperer and a really good coach. Jeff Brom won at Purdue. He had Purdue a couple years ago in the Big Ten championship game. That's our Big Ten brethren, Purdue, by the way. And last year at Louisville went 8-4. That was a step back after he won 10 games in his first year and went to the ACC championship game. So I don't think that job has any particular danger of coming open. But I think the question for Will Stein, or questions, are twofold with regards to his coaching trajectory. Number one, what kind of job would he be willing to take? Great example. Sean Lewis is the head coach down at San Diego State going into his second year. He was the head coach at Kent State. Then he was the offensive coordinator at Colorado in Dion's first year. Then, I don't really know why, he was relieved of his duties there, went to be the head coach at San Diego State. Would Will Stein take that sort of job? Or does he look at what Kenny Dillingham did, who's coaching at his alma mater? Sure. But does he look at that and say, wait, Dillingham is the youngest head coach in all of college football that was the offensive coordinator or Lanning? do I want to make that same sort of jump? Am I only leaving Oregon for a Power 4 coaching opportunity? But number two, when does he feel like his stock is highest in the coaching ranks? Because I get the sense, I haven't spoken to him personally, but I get the sense that Will Stein wants to be a head coach one day. But there's always a calculation. Penn State's offensive coordinator, Andy Kotelnicki, could have been the head coach at West Virginia this year. But he wanted to coach Penn State through their postseason run. West Virginia wanted him to leave, so he said no thanks. They go hire Rich Rodriguez, also Pac-12 legend of sorts when he was at Arizona, but also initially had success over at West Virginia there. So it's always kind of a calculation, but for Oregon, this coordinator continuity, you hear extension, and I'm sure these guys got a little bit of a salary bump as well. On paper, that looks like, oh, well, they're going to stay for another couple of years. Can you find me the high-profile staff that's competing for a playoff spot, just won a Big Ten championship, trying to win a national championship, that's retaining their coordinators every year? Ohio State just won the national championship and lost both of their coordinators. Chip Kelly to the Raiders, Jim Knowles to Penn State. And Penn State, great season. Runners up in the Big Ten after losing to Oregon in the title game, went all the way to the semifinals of the college football playoff, lost their defensive coordinator, Tom Allen. He went down to Clemson. So I think Tosh Lupoi can be the defensive coordinator at Oregon as long as Dan Lanning wants him to be. And I know that there are certain pockets of the fan base that aren't wild about Tosh Lupoi. I direct you towards Alex Grinch as an example of what it looks like of a defensive coordinator that needs to be moved on from. Lupoi recruits at an incredibly high level. He's always had that reputation, but the defense has gotten better in each subsequent year compared to the prior one. So I'm in the camp of Dan Lanning has done a really good job of kind of remaking Tosh Lupoi's reputation as a defensive coordinator, which wasn't great, and he hadn't done it in a little while. Can they improve? Yes, clearly. The big games were not as stellar defensive performances as you would have liked this past season, but Lupoi's never been a major head coaching candidate. His name doesn't pop up on lists. That means whoever his agent is not floating his name out there or trying to get him in touch with schools or anything like that. Stein is someone who obviously will be at Oregon in 2025. It is too late, even now, even in today's college football world, for a coaching vacancy to take place and for Stein to leave Oregon at the last minute. That window kind of passed, early February, I think, is when Chip Kelly left UCLA a season ago. But what kind of job does he want? When does he feel like his stock is at the highest? But with the relative lack of Stein's name getting floated or tied to particular job openings out there, not that I've never seen his name pop up before, but the buzz hasn't been overly intense. I don't know how aggressively right now he's looking for that sort of opportunity. And you could have a situation where going into 2026, Will Stein and Tosh Lupoi are your coordinators again. And by the way, sign me up for that. Continuity is better. Sometimes change is a good thing. Whether you wanted it to come about or not, one door closes, another door opens sort of thing. But anytime you have the ability to have the same set of coordinators, that's a rare thing. And head coaches, are trying to find that any chance that they can get. And I think Oregon is in a fairly unique position right now to where they're having the same set of coordinators come back for a third straight year. If they could do it for a fourth straight year, I'm bullish on what Oregon could do in 2026, and I like what they can do in 2025 as well. But let me know what you think in the YouTube comments below. Hit me up on Twitter. Become a Locked On Ducks Insider always to get in touch with me and be a part of the show. So, surprises. Do you like surprises? I can like them when they're good surprises. But where are there going to be surprises in the Oregon Two Deep? I've got one on offense and I've got one on defense. And I got to tell you about Supply House because they're great. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast, kind of like Oregon's conference, the Big Ten. Los Angeles, Rutgers, same league because, 2025 and whatnot. Supply House offers expert support, industry-leading service, and you always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. And Wayfair is bringing you this episode as well because they're bringing you all the furniture needs that you have. Your home should reflect your style, and with Wayfair, it's easier than ever to make that happen. Whether you're looking for simple refresh or tackling a big home project, Wayfair has everything you need in one place. Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece no matter your space or your budget. From cozy furniture and stylish decor to kitchen essentials and outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all, and at the prices that fit your budget. If you're looking for a new rug to tie your living room together, Wayfair has a bunch of stylish options at great prices. That's just one example of many in which they can help your home look that much better. Head over to wayfair.com, find something that is just your style today. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, spring football, it's an exciting time because it means we're officially on countdown watch to the spring game. April 26th, that's roughly a month and a half away, a month and 16 days, but who's counting 15 days? I don't know, months are weird, but you get the point here. So submit all of your spring football questions, YouTube comments, Twitter, or become a Locked On Ducks insider, get priority access and a bunch of other perks as well. Link in the description below. You can get a free 14-day trial. So when are you sending this question? I'm kind of going in a different direction, but kind of not. Benjamin asks, what surprise will we see in the two deep on either the offense or the defense? Well, here's the thing, Benjamin. It's really hard for me to say authoritatively, this will happen. This is going, because we haven't seen any crumbles of information come out of spring football just yet. But here's how I'm going to kind of just twist your question ever so slightly. I'll make a prediction on both offense and defense about what will happen that will surprise you about Oregon's two deep as spring football continues to unfold. I'm going to start on the defensive side of the ball. I think Elijah Rushing is going to have a difficult time seeing the field consistently in 2025 for the Ducks. Now, going into his second year, certainly you'd expect he's gotten up to speed with the weight room and the playbook and going against college kids and all that sort of stuff. But this was arguably the highest rated recruit, depending on which metric you look at, in the class of 2024. He logged all of 18 snaps a season ago, which goes to show you how rare Kayvon Thibodeau was, or Mateo Uyunglele, or heck, even Blake Purchase and Tatum Tuioti, because Rushing higher rated than both Purchase and Tuioti from their respective classes, but did not see the field as a true freshman. Now, that also speaks to Oregon's defensive line depth, because remember, Purchase redshirted this past year because there was essentially a plant that I can't remember ever happening, frankly, where he played as a true freshman, and they said, yeah, we've got a bunch of other guys, so we're going to kind of sit you here for a year, and then you're going to be ready to pop in 2025. And he's like, cool. I respect him for that, because I think a lot of kids might have transferred out and said, no, I'm not going forward with that plan. But there will be more of an opportunity for Rushing, because remember, in kind of those speed or NASCAR packages, whatever you want to call them, those groups of defensive linemen where you just put every pass rusher on the field that you could, you maybe weren't as bulked up with power because you knew, hey, it's 3rd and 9. They're throwing the football. Let's put Jaden Moore on the field. Or, Amarion Winston in there as one of the interior guys because they're trying to go for speed over power. Those are the opportunities where I think Elijah Rushing has a chance to see the field more than he did a season ago. But I just mentioned the guys who I think pretty decidedly are going to be ahead of him on the depth chart. At least I expect to be. And it's not that I don't think Rushing is capable of being a good player. Of course he is. He's 6'6", 255, and twitchy. I mean, he was a really highly ranked recruit, top 30 player in the country in his class in 2024. And that wasn't by accident. That wasn't a fluke. But it still might take him several years to become an established starter on this defensive line unit because Oregon has just recruited this position so incredibly well. And he's not someone that, is going to slide to the inside, again, unless he's going in with, 4 speed rushers in an obvious passing situation. But I don't know where his heavy snaps would come from. He would have to take a significant step forward because we know Mateo Uiagalelei is your best edge player for Oregon, right? That's plain and obvious. Guy's going to be a first-round pick for the 2026 NFL draft. And be the second straight defensive lineman taken in the first round for Oregon because Derek Harmon's likely to be a first-round pick here in the coming weeks in the 2025 NFL draft. But Mateo is locked in, like that's your top edge. But is Rushing going to just jump past Blake Purchase, who's going into his third year, or Tatum Tuioti going into his third year, who have both logged far more game snaps than he has? In far more high-pressure situations? Yeah, I don't know is the answer, but I would lean towards, if you got 2 guys who you already know are good and are well-established, I don't know what step back they're taking. Now, if he does see the field and jumps past him, I think that's because he's taken a huge step forward. So that would be a really, really good sign. Like, if he has a significant role, I bet it's because he starts to become a semi-dominant player coming off of that edge. But I think Rushing specifically is really important for 2026 because Mateo will be gone and then you'll have a void. I don't know that Purchase and Tuioti would have the same sort of NFL draft stock that Mateo could. So you might have a void at that edge spot and you'd be losing a lot of production. Maybe that's when hopefully that's when Rushing would be ready to, take that next step and become a high-end contributor for Oregon's defense. But I think that's someone who plenty of fans I'm sure have on their minds is like, super highly rated guy going into his second year. I think it is a difficult path to see the field for the Ducks at the edge position this year because you have those 3 guys who have already been there for a couple of seasons. So that's a surprise or hot take prediction, whatever you want to call it, on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, I actually struggled a bit coming up with this one. Like Rushing and the edge players popped into my mind pretty immediately. There could be a number of surprises on the 2 deep at a myriad of spots. These are just the ones that stood out the most. And drop yours below in the YouTube comments, by the way. Curious to see what you guys are thinking there as you get ready for spring football. But offensively, I'll say by the end of 2025, again, not necessarily immediately or right away on the 2 deep for spring ball, but I think Malik Benson is far from a shoo-in to be a big-time contributor with all the talent that's in that receiving room. And I think Jeremiah McLaughlin could be the guy that kind of pushes him out. And if at some point, a depth chart pops up and it's, hey, Benson's the number 2 Z receiver behind Jeremiah McLaughlin, wouldn't stun me. Or Jurion Dickey could fill that particular role. And certainly I see the upside with Malik Benson. He hasn't been given a great opportunity to try and maximize the physical traits that he has and the ability he's got. I just don't have the expectation. Any amount of production with him, frankly, is kind of an added bonus because my expectations for him are pretty low until he, proves that he's capable of contributing a high level and being, a big-time dependable target. There are a lot of talented guys in that room. And Jurion Dickey's been waiting his turn, and he's super talented. Hopefully he's healthy. And Kyler Casper coming off an injury, see if he gets healthy. But that's why because of their injury history, I might go Jeremiah McLaughlin and say that'd be kind of my bold take on the 2 deep is maybe by the end of spring football, Jeremiah McLaughlin has passed Malik Benson, both end up having a role come this fall. But curious to see where you guys' heads are at. 1 offense, 1 defense. You can do just 1 on either side. I suppose I'll allow it. I'm a very lenient judge here on the show. Nate Bittle was anything but lenient on Saturday. W7 I have so many thoughts. First, this episode brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here. Oregon's going to be a part of it one way or the other, and that's great news. And FanDuel's giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Plus, Oregon football, you can bet on them right here, right now. They've got national title odds, pretty high. They've got conference championship odds, also very high. They have got a win total of 10.5. I tell you, same as last year, that favorable schedule. Hard to not get excited at least a little bit, right? But if you want to spice it up or college basketball, yeah, FanDuel is the place to do it. FanDuel.com. Get in on the college hoops action all tournament long at FanDuel.com. Nate Bittle's point total for the game was greater than either half for the entire Washington team on Saturday in Seattle. So, Bittle has 36 points. The rest of Oregon's team scores 44. He also had 12 rebounds and 2 blocks. KJ Evans had 11, and 2 blocks. I'll talk about him more in a moment, but this was the Nate Bittle show. First possession, they went to Bittle, faces up, and he just flicked the wrist and knocked down a 17-footer, and I thought, well, that's a good sign. He looked really confident and comfortable. Turns out he was confident and comfortable doing everything. He was 3 of 4 from 3, 7 of 8 at the foul line, 13 of 20 from the floor. He logged 39 minutes in this game, and Oregon wins their 7th straight over Washington, 80-73. And Bittle has been awesome this year. It has been so great for a guy whose potential we've seen in the last several years, and he's often been cut down by injury, including last season when he only appeared in 5 games. And now Dante doesn't get the extra year. That unleashes Nate Bittle, and man, he's a weapon in every way. And his defense, I'd say, is great 95% of the time. There are a couple moments where I wonder why he doesn't contest shots. He was playing with some foul trouble at points in this game, but overall, man, he's a stud. Total stud. He is playing great ball right now. He's a finalist for the best center in the country for a reason. I mean, he was making seemingly everything he looked at. I was surprised when he missed, and Oregon needed him to be that guy in this game because Jackson Shelstad, leading scorer, could not hit anything. Shelstad was 0 of 5 from 3 and 0 of 2 at the foul line. I'm going out on a limb and saying he will not have a game the rest of the season where he fails to make either a three-pointer or a free throw with multiple attempts at both. That's just not something he does. He had good looks. They just weren't going down. Shelstad had 4 points in this game. Bamba was 3 of 9, missed all 4 of his three-point attempts. Oregon's starting backcourt, 0 of 9 from 3. Not great. As a team, 6 of 21. Not great. Didn't matter. Nate Bittle was a beast. And when he plays like that, Oregon's offense is close to its full potential. And this game was tied at 68 going into overtime, and then Oregon just put their foot on the gas and said, yeah, all right, let's make it 3-0 in overtime games this year. And they did, outscoring the Huskies 12-5 in that stretch. So Bittle, phenomenally brilliant as they go into the Big Ten tournament. That's Thursday afternoon against Indiana, who they just played 2 games ago at Matthew Knight Arena. Close game. Oregon kind of pulled away at the end, but it'll certainly be a battle. And I'll have more in that game on Wednesday's show. But cannot say enough good things about Nate Bittle, man. 39 minutes for a 7-footer. That's not an easy feat. Not an easy feat. And he has just been relied upon so heavily here down the stretch. Oregon has won 7 straight games on the heels of a 5-game losing skid. I think this keeps them solidly in position to be a 5 seed, and the opportunity to be a 4 seed is still there. Because if you beat Indiana, you get a shot at Michigan State. If you beat the Big Ten regular season champs, I don't know how that doesn't bump you up a seed, because the Spartans are currently projected as a 2, as they should be, but got to beat Indiana first. That won't be easy. They are also looking like a tournament team as an 11 or a 10 seed. But I also want to give flowers to KJ Evans here, who had 11 rebounds in this game. Somehow, This was KJ Evans' first career double-double. I saw Oregon basketball tweet that out. Couldn't believe it, that this was his first double-double. But alas, here we are. And he has just elevated his game over the last couple of weeks, and it's not a coincidence that Oregon keeps winning games as a result. So he had 11 points, 11 boards, 2 blocks. He was 3 of 4 shooting, made his only 3, 4 of 6 at the foul line. He did miss 2 free throws with the game tied at 68 and 24 seconds to go. But he just stayed locked in, came right back down at the other end, and got the stop on Great Osobor because he is an outstanding defensive player. I have been singing his praises at that end of the floor since before the season began. KJ Evans is not a good defender. He is a great defender. And Great Osobor, Washington's big man, had been having a really good game. And frankly, I'm glad that Evans was on Osobor instead of Bittle, because Osobor kind of had Bittle's number there down the stretch. And Dana Altman made sure Evans was on him, and he gets the big stop after missing 2 free throws. Then he goes into overtime, big offensive rebound off a missed Shellstad 3, floats it over former Duck Frank Kepnong, who got a piece of it. It was a goaltend, went in anyway. Evans was so timely. His rebounding and defense are just as good as you could ask for a true sophomore. Yes, the offensive progression and array of moves has to be better for him to reach his full potential, but man, he's played well. And Brandon Angel continues to start for continuity purposes, but KJ Evans is on the floor late as Oregon's power forward, and he absolutely should be, because he is playing better than Angel across the board, who, has gotten into a bit of a rut, isn't scoring a bunch, but Evans' physicality, defense, been really, really good. And the timing of his rebounding and his defense, he and Bittle had a sequence, I believe it was in overtime, where Washington had about 4 looks right at the basket, and they kept contending or blocking the shots without fouling and came up with the stop. Gave up 5 points in 5 minutes in overtime. Absolutely phenomenal. Is Washington a good team? Nope. Dead last in the Big Ten. Literally dead last. They are not a good team. But it was a packed arena. Winning on the road is hard. And Oregon, again, just found a way. They've had a habit of playing close games all season long. And going into the tournament, they will be right at home if they find themselves in a game coming down to the wire. But the depth of Oregon was showcased in this game compared to last season. It was the Couisnard-Dante show, and that was awesome. They were almost able to ride that to the Sweet 16. I think their ceiling probably would have been getting to the Elite 8. Ceiling on this team is making a Final Four run. The floor, losing in the first round. That's where they're at in the NCAA tournament. Frankly, in the Big Ten tournament, too. They could lose to Indiana on Thursday. They could win 4 games in a row and have an 11-game winning streak going into the NCAA tournament and likely have played themselves into a 3 seed at that point. All of these things are just as likely, which is why March is great and terrifying. But last year, Shellstad's been so good in the last several weeks. He had an off night. He was taking good shots. He still facilitated, which is something I've wanted to see more from him over the course of this year. I think he's done that in the last several weeks. He had 5 assists in this game and did some nice things defensively, came up with a steal, and I think is, pretty active and just annoying and pesky for opposing teams to deal with because he's just so incredibly quick. He's not big, but he is really, really quick, and I think works hard at that end of the floor. But last year at this time, if Couisnard had an off night, then that was it. You weren't winning the game, didn't matter who you were playing. Here, Shellstad couldn't hit a shot. Barthélemy, good game, 14 points. Big shot Barthélemy. Had a big 3 late in the second half of this game to snap a 5-minute drought without a field goal for Oregon. Of course, Barthélemy came through in that particular moment off a nice feed from Nate Bittle. But the ability of this team to not be as reliant on just 1 or 2 guys, it is kind of feeling like last year, but not entirely. Bittle just went bonkers in this game. Like if Couisnard had a day the end of last season where he goes 2 of 9 and 0 of 5 from 3, how many points is Oregon scoring? 60? Maybe? I don't know where all those points are coming from. Dante couldn't put up 36 because he can't shoot and score at all 3 levels like Nate Bittle can. So they're different players. Dante is a slightly better defender. Both are great shot blockers. Biddle's a better overall scorer. But Washington is 0-3 against Oregon in men's basketball and football since we joined the Big Ten together. You make of that whatever you would like. But it's always good when you beat the Huskies, no matter what the record is. And it was never going to be easy. And it wasn't easy. So now they go into Thursday's game against Indiana, looking to make it 8 straight wins. Playing well at the right time. I would love to see them try and find a way to get themselves into a position to be a 4 seed. Not going to be an easy thing to do, but it is definitely possible. But the emergence of KJ Evans, Nate Bittle, I just would love to see TJ Bamba be more consistent shooting the ball. Not from 3. Stop shooting 3. He was 3 of 5 on 2-point field goals, 0 of 4 from 3. Yes, it'd be great if he found a stroke. He's clearly not going to this year. It's an aberration. It stinks, but it is what it is. I like the shots he's taken in the mid-range area, him getting to the bucket. If he can be a consistently reliable scorer, when you've got him and Barthélemy backing up Shellstad and Bittle and what you get from Evans off the bench, the depth of this team is just so much greater than what it was last year, and it's one of many reasons that they are in the position they're in right now. Win or lose on Thursday, they're into the NCAA tournament. And that is incredibly refreshing. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.